Testing, testing. Testing, testing. I don't know. You want to type? Play. Testing, testing, testing. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman. Al-Latif. Al-Muhsan. Al-Hamid. Al-Majid. Al-Ali. Al-Qahhar. Al-Mutakabbir. Al-Raqib. Al-Alim. السميع البصير وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبع هداه إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. This is the 13th, I believe, 13th broadcast from the book حل العقدة في شرح العمدة, which is an explanation of a book called Umdatul Fiqh. Umdatul Fiqh was by Al-Imam Ibn Qudama Al-Maqdisi. And this explanation is by Abdul Aziz ibn Abdullah Al-Rajihi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala. I'd like to welcome the brothers and sisters in the Atlantic City area, as well as the brothers and sisters in the Alabama area, and the brothers and sisters from anywhere you may be. Welcome. Hayakum Allah. Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome. Barakallahu feekum. So we're on the chapter about the wudu. We're on the chapter about the wudu. And I believe the last lesson we started with talking about takhlilul lihyati wal asabi', running your fingers or putting your fingers through your beard when you're making wudu. When you wet your hands, putting your wet fingers through your beard and wetting between your toes. your fingers and your toes. طيب. And this section was inside a section of the masnoon. Those things that are masnoon, a mustahabbat, al mustahabbat. Those things that are masnoon or mustahabba. And in that portion of the text. And under those mustahabbat, he mentions putting your fingers through your beard. That's if your beard is thick. However, it should, if your beard is thin, and you can see your skin can be seen through your beard, then it is legislated that you washed the whole beard. It's obligatory for you to wash it. It's obligatory in this case for you to wash your beard, as it was mentioned previously in the previous lessons. Likewise, it's recommended to get water between your fingers with your hands and between your toes when you're making wudu. طيب. Also, of those things that are mustahabba, washing the ears, washing or wiping the ears, with water, and that's based on the ahadith that mention that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that. However, and that's one position in the madhab of Al-Imam Ahmed, and that's the madhab of the other three imams, Abu Hanifa, Al-Imam Malik, and Shafi'i, that is recommended. And likewise, however, the other position of Al-Imam Ahmed, in the madhab of Al-Imam Ahmed, is that it's obligatory. And that's because of the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-udhunani min al-ra's, that the ears are part of the head. The ears are part of the head. So if the ears are part of the head, then it's included in the ayah where Allah Ta'ala says, "Wamsahu bi ru'usikum." So in this case, it would be obligatory. In this case, it would be obligatory. And what I learned from Sheikh Mahir Hafidhullah Ta'ala, Sheikh Abu Abdullah Mahir bin Dhafir al-Qahtani, al-Dhafir al-Qahtani, is that washing the ears is recommended. That washing the ears recommended, and the Sheikh, he would say that's because that was the madhab of Abdullah ibn Umar, without any of the companions criticizing him, that he will wash part of his forehead, and not do or part of the top part of his head, the front part of the top part of his head where his hair was, and he wouldn't wash the remainder. And the hadith, al-udhunani min al-ra's, al-udhunani min al-ra's, the Sheikh, he mentions that this hadith, however, it was declared, based on the different narrations of the same hadith, it was declared to be Hasan, I guess, Hasan li ghayrihi, by Hafidh ibn Hajar and al-Albani. And Allahu Ta'ala a'lam. In any event, and we also talked about, in a situation where the scholars differ, if it's easy for you to avoid the differing of the scholars, then that's a safe way to not fall into any errors. Some of the scholars say it's obligatory to do your ears. Some say it's recommended. If you make wudu and you did your ears, you wouldn't be in a situation where your action would be criticizable. You wouldn't be in a situation where your action would be possibly criticized. طيب. Um, Also recommended of the things that are mustahabba is doing the right side, or doing the right in every different body part, doing the right limb or side or what have you first before the left. That's recommended. It's mustahabba. And the sheikh, he says it's not it's not suitable for an individual to do his left first. That's the meaning of his statement. He says لا ينبغي فينبغي أن لا يخل بالتيامن, or it's suitable, rather the sheikh said it's suitable to that an individual, that it's not suitable for an individual to take this situation lightly. They're doing the right first. Then the sheikh mentions washing everything 3 times, the things that can be washed 3 times: the hands, the mouth, and the nose, the face, the hands, and up to the hands and the arms up to the elbows, and the feet. Doing those things 3 times is recommended. It's recommended. And the person has the option to do everything 3 times. Or those things, to do those things 3 times each, 3 times or 2 times or 1 time, or he can mix. Right? It's permissible for him to do some things 3 times, some things 2, some things once, because all of these different situations or these different ways were affirmed in the ahadith, or in the ahadith it shows that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did these things. Type. The sheikh, he can, in terms of today, the author Ibn Qudama, he says وَتُكْرَهُ. So we're talking about those things that are makruha, the makruhat. He says تُكْرَهُ الزِّيَادَةُ عَلَيْهَا. Right? A ziyada, increasing, doing things more than 3 times each. Doing things more than 3 times each, the Sheikh Ibn Qudama, he says, is disliked. وَالْإِسْرَافُ فِي الْمَاءِ. Likewise, wasting water is disliked. The Sheikh, he says, the explainer, he says, يُكْرَهُ غُسْلُ الْعَضْوِ أَكْثَرَ من 3 مرات. Is disliked to wash a body part more than 3 times. He says, فَهَذَا مَكْرُوهٌ كَرَاهَةً شَدِيدَةً. This is disliked. This is very, very disliked. Very disliked. The Sheikh, he says, وَلَوْ قِيلَ بِالتَّحْرِيمِ فَلَهُ وَجْهٌ. If a person said that it was haram, or if it was said that it is haram, then that is an accurate position. Right? That position has its proof. لِقَوْلِهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, because of the statement of the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, من زاد فقد أساء وتعدى وظلم. Whoever increases, whoever does more, فقد أساء, he has done evil, وتعدى, and transgressed, وظلم, and oppressed. Sheikh is using this as a proof. This hadith is narrated by An-Nasa'i and Ibn Majah and Ahmed. قال ابن دقيق العيد إسناده صحيح إلى عمر. The Sheikh, he says, whoever declares the narrations of Amr ibn Shu'ayb and Abihi and Jaddihi to be correct, then it is authentic. Right? يعني حسن authentic. The Sheikh, he says authentic. يعني فهو عنده صحيح. It's really not clear to me personally how this can be makruh. And the Prophet ﷺ described the person that does this as having done evil and transgressed and oppressed. Allahu Alam. This hadith needs to be looked up. Inshallah, try to look it up and report back next class. The Sheikh, he says, وَيُكْرَهُ كَذَلِكَ الْإِسْرَافُ فِي اسْتِعْمَالِ الْمَاءِ. He says, likewise, it's disliked to waste water. Likewise, it's disliked to use a whole lot of water, or to be wasteful in using water, to use too much water, to be wasteful in the usage of water. لقوله تعالى, because statement of Allah Ta'ala, وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, and don't be wasteful. إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ. He says, مَا حُكْمُ التَّنْشِيفِ بَعْدَ الْوُضُوء. What's the ruling on drying off after wudu? The Sheikh, he says, التنشيف بعد الوضوء مسكوت عنه. Takshif, drying off after wudu, is one of those masail that there's no text about. It's maskutun anhu, right? This particular verbiage, maskutun anhu, refers to some of the ahadith and 40 hadith, right? Anyway, it's maskut anhu. It's not mentioned. It's nothing mentioned about it. فَلَا بَأْسَ بِهِ. The Sheikh, he says, it's no problem. He says, وَلِهَذَا يَقُولُ الْعُلَمَاء. And because of this, the scholars, they say, وَتُبَاحُ مَعُونَتُهُ وَتَنْشِيفُ أَعْضَائِهِ. And the point here is تُبَاحُ تَنْشِيفُ أَعْضَائِهِ. It's permissible to dry off your body parts. He says, فَهُوَ مُبَاحٌ. It is permissible. It's not haram. It's not makruh. It's not obligatory. It's not recommended. It's mubah, right? He says, وَأَمَّا مَا ثَبَتَ فِي حَدِيثِ مَيْمُونَةٍ. The Sheikh, he says, in terms of the hadith of Maymuna, لما اغتسل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, when the Messenger of Allah made ghusl, فأتيته بخرقة. I came to him with a type of cloth, يعني a towel, what we would call a towel. فلم يردها, he didn't want it. فجعل ينفض بيده. The Prophet ﷺ began to wipe the water off with his hands. He says, وجعل ينفض بيده. He يعني ينفض فجعل ينفض بيده. He says, فهذا في الغسل. The Sheikh, he said, this is in terms of the ghusl. He says, فالأولى فيه أن لا يتنشف. It's better in terms of the ghusl that a person does not dry off. It's better in terms of the ghusl that the person does not dry off. وإن تنشف فلا حرج. And if a person does it, then it's no problem. That's because the after mentioning that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ didn't do it, and the reason the Sheikh can say that if a person does it, it's no problem, is because the actions of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ don't show obligation. That's the usul with Ahl Sunnah, these scholars of usul al-fiqh. They mention that the action of the Messenger of Allah does not show obligation. So that's why the Sheikh can say فَلَا حَرَج. طيب. وَيُسَنُّ, and it's recommended السِّوَاقِ عند تغير الفم, when the scent of a person's breath changes. وَالْقِيَامِ مِنَ النَّوْمِ, and when a person wakes up. وَعِنْدَ الصَّلَاةِ, and when a person wants to pray, or when a person is about to pray. لِقَوْلِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ لولا أن أشق على أمتي, if it wasn't for the fact that I I'm worried and concerned about making a hardship for my nation. لأمرتهم, I would have ordered them بالسواك, to do the siwak, عند كل صلاة, right, for every prayer. ويستحب في سائر الأوقات. The Sheikh, the author, he says, and it's recommended in general, يعني in the rest in general, it's recommended إلا للصائم بعد الزوال, except for the person fasting after dhuhr, except after dhuhr for the person after the zawal, after the zawal for the person fasting. And the zawal, I believe is after dhuhr or dhuhr time, right? So after the time for dhuhr, I think they call it zawal. Allahu alam. طيب, he says السواك مستحب في كل وقت. The Sheikh, he says, the explainer, he says that siwak, using the siwak, is recommended in general, anytime it's recommended. ويتأكد استحبابه, and it is recommended even more in certain times. ذكر المؤلف, the author, he mentioned عند تغير الفم, when the mouth changes. Literally, that's the literal translation of the text. But the meaning is, the Sheikh, he says, أي تغير رائحته, when the scent of the mouth changes. وفي الحديث, and in the hadith it mentions السواك مطهرة للفم مرضاة للرب, that the siwak is it cleans the mouth and it pleases the Lord. It pleases the Lord, yani Allah, it pleases Allah. This hadith is narrated by Imam Ahmad and An-Nasa'i and other than them. Likewise, the author mentions عند القيام من النوم, when waking from sleep, because of the hadith of Hudayfa radiallahu anhu, where the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, كان النبي, where Hudayfa said, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا قام من الليل يشوص فاه بالسواك. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he used to wake up from sleep at night, he would clean his mouth with the siwak. يشوص فاه بالسواك. طيب, وعند الصلاة, the author, he mentions عند الصلاة, the explainer, he says أي عند القيام للصلاة, when a person stands to pray. لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, because of the statement of the Messenger of Allah, لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك عند كل صلاة. That if it wasn't for the fact that, if it wasn't that it would be a difficulty, if it wasn't for the fact that I feel that it would be a difficulty in my ummah, my nation, I would have ordered them with the siwak for every prayer. The Sheikh, he says, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ السِّوَاكِ كَذَلِكَ عِنْدَ الْوُضُوءِ. Likewise, it's recommended to do the siwak when a person is before the person does wudu, because of the hadith of Aisha, narrated by Imam Muslim, where Aisha was mentioned بأي شيء كان يبدأ النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل بيته. لا. Because of the hadith of Abu Hurairah, where he says that the Messenger of Allah said the same thing he said about salah, he said about wudu. If I didn't feel that it would be a difficulty, if I wasn't concerned that it would be a difficulty on my ummah, if it wasn't, I'm the Prophet, he was worried about things being difficult for his ummah. So as a result of it, he didn't order them to do the siwak and at the time of wudu. It's narrated by Al-Imam Malik, Al-Imam Ahmad, and Nasa'i fi al-Kubra. And the Sheikh, he says, with an authentic chain. Right? طيب. Likewise, it's recommended to do the siwak and the dukhul al-bayt when a person is about to enter the house because of the hadith in Muslim, Sahih Muslim, the hadith of Aisha. She was asked what did the Messenger of Allah sallallahu used to, what was the first thing that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu used to do when he entered his house. She said he would do the siwak. The siwak. The Sheikh, he says, some of the scholars, قال بعض العلماء فيه, some of the scholars mentioned about the siwak, فوائده عظيمة, that its benefits are great. منها, of those benefits, أنه يذكر الشهادة عند الموت. It reminds a person to say La ilaha illallah at the time, or with saying, it reminds a person about the shahada, at the saying of La ilaha illallah at the time of death. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did the siwak. He used to do the siwak until his last minute, to his last breath, as is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, that he did the siwak as he was about to die, and the hadith of Aisha. وقوله, and the author, he says, يستحب في سائر الأوقات للصائم إلا للصائم بعد الزوال, and it's recommended at all other times except for the person fasting بعد الزوال. The Sheikh, he says, يستحب السواك في جميع الأوقات. It's recommended to do the siwak in general, in any time, every time. لأنه يزيل رائحة الفم, because it removes the scent, the bad scent from the mouth, the bad smell from your mouth. إلا أن الفقهاء, except that the fuqaha اختلفوا في حكم السواك للصائم بعد الظهر, because the scholars differed about, the Sheikh, he says, except that the scholars differ about the faster, using the siwak بعد الظهر. Yes, بعد الظهر, after dhuhr, right? القول الأول, the first position, أنه يكره, that it is disliked. لأن السواك يزيل رائحة الفم, because the siwak removes the scent of the mouth. ورائحة فم الصائم, and the scent of the mouth of the person fasting. وإن كانت مكروهة في مشام الناس, even though it's disliked, the smell is disliked to people. فهي محبوبة عند الله, it is beloved to Allah. It is beloved to Allah. And yes, Allah Ta'ala does love. And Allah Ta'ala's characteristic of love is unique to him. It's not like the creation. It's unique to Allah. And we don't say it means A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No, we say it means love. Right? It means it's love, but the characteristic of love in accordance with Allah Ta'ala, in accordance and unique to Allah Ta'ala's majesty, Allah Ta'ala's uniqueness, and so on and so forth. Because of the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, خلوف فم الصائم أطيب عند الله من ريح المسك, because the smell, the khuluf of the person fasting is أطيب to Allah Ta'ala than the scent of the misk. The khuluf, the Sheikh, he says, is this scent that comes from the stomach, because of the stomach being empty, because when a person fasts, his stomach is empty, so that scent that comes from the person's stomach, because of lack of food and drink. He says, فَيُكْرَهُ السِّوَاقِ بَعْدَ الزَّوَالِ, because doing the siwak is disliked after dhuhr, so that this scent that is beloved to Allah won't be removed. He says, وَهَذَا هُوَ الْمَذْهَبِ, this is the position in the madhab, and he mentions that this is the position likewise of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala. وَاسْتَدَلُّوا, and they used as a proof the hadith إِذَا صُمْتُمْ فَاسْتَاكُوا بِالْغَدَاتِ. If you fast, then make the siwak bil-ghadati. And ghadat has a meaning. وَلَا تَسْتَاكُوا بِالْعَشِيِّ and don't do the siwak in this time and not in that time. And this hadith is da'if. This hadith is da'if. It's narrated by Darqutni, and it has a weak narrator in the chain Kaysan al-Qasar وهو ضعيف. طيب. The second position is that it's recommended في كل الأوقات ولا يكره. The second position is that it's recommended in all times, and it's not disliked. وهو الصواب, and this is the correct position. الذي عليه المحققون. This is the correct position that the scholars who have done the due diligence and serious research, or due diligence and diligent research, this is their position. And this is the position of Imam Abu Hanifa and Malik, and likewise Imam Ahmed, with one of the narrations from Imam Ahmed. And this is the position of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. That's because of the hadith of Amir ibn Rabi'ah. The hadith of who? Amir ibn Rabi'ah, that he said, رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما لا أحصي يتسوق وهو صائم. I saw the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم many times doing the siwak and while he's fasting. The Sheikh mentions this hadith. طيب. والسواك, and the siwak لا يزيل الخلوف. The Sheikh he says that the siwak doesn't remove the khaluf, which is the smell that comes from the stomach, right? It doesn't remove that. He says لكن ينبغي للإنسان. The Sheikh says, however, it's suitable for an individual who wants to do the siwak to do it lightly. ولا يكون صلبا يجرح اللثة, and the person should not do it very hard to the point where it punctures the gums. ولا يتفتت فيصل فتاته إلى الحلق, and a person shouldn't do the siwak to the point where the pieces of the siwak begin to break up into small pieces, and they reach the person's throat. He says, فإذا كان بهذا الصفة, if the person does the siwak like this, فلا بأس, no problem. He says, في أول الزوال وآخره, in the beginning or in the beginning of the part of the day, before dhuhr, after dhuhr, it doesn't matter. He says, وهل يستاق بيمينه أو بشماله, should the person do the siwak with his right hand or the left hand? Because some of the scholars take the position that the person should do the siwak with his right hand. Right? That some of the scholars say that the person should do it with his right hand. And this is the position of the three Imams, Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Shafi'i, and one of the positions of Imam Ahmed. The Sheikh, so he says that some of the scholars mentioned that the person should do it with his right hand because doing the siwak is a type of tatyib. It's a type of tatyib, perfuming, right? He says wara'a akharun, and the others take the position that a person should do the siwak with your right hand, left hand, with your left hand. The first one with the right hand. Some other scholars say the left hand, and this is the position of another. This is a position of Imam Ahmed and the position of Ibn Taymiyyah. And they say because the siwak is a type of removing harms, like removing al-adha, right? Like removing filth, So as a result, the Sheikh, he said it should be, some of the scholars say it should be done with the left hand based on this. He says, "Wa huwa al-aqrab," and this is what is most correct. This is what is most correct. in the Sheikh's estimation. And that's the end of this lesson. The next section we're going to talk about Babul Mashi al Khafain, wiping over the socks and what have you. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.